Hey, what's going on? It's CJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. I'm your host. We're in the midst of fall camp, like I've been stating. The past couple of days, the Noles have been in Jacksonville for their annual trip, and we had a special guest out there in practice, former FSU fullback James Coleman. I'm going to talk to him and get his thoughts in regards to how the few days went and where he thinks the Noles stand going into week 0 against Georgia Tech. Before we get started, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. It does a world of favors for us as a DoakTalk community. All right, 36, talk to me, man. What did you see out there in practice? How did things go? First, we'll start off with the offense. What did the quarterbacks do that kind of caught your attention, good or bad?
They were, ball control, making sure that they didn't turn. I mean, there were turnovers, but in the scrimmage, there weren't turnovers like that. They were trying to take what the defense gave them, and with a defense that's as fast and aggressive and attacking as ours, there is, it's a lot of room to make errors when it comes to that. But our guys did fine. Our guys did perfectly well. DJU is a guy who moves the ball down the field. And Luke Cromahawk, to me, was the guy who was the second best, but none of them did particularly bad. But you can definitely see that the offense is much different when DJU is under center.
Yeah, that makes sense with all the experience he brings, playing ball at Clemson or Oregon State, a wealth of starts up under his belt, and to Mike Norvell's surprise, a firm grasp of the offense at this point in time during camp, which is real encouraging to hear. All right, so let's move on to the running backs. This is by far one of the best units on the FSU team. Bring back a lot of production with Lawrence Toafili, and of course you got Rodell, and it's a few younger guys that's starting to make a name for themselves as well in this fall camp. So you're a former fullback yourself, so you know a lot about backs. Tell me what you saw at the running backs the past 2 days in Jacksonville.
I think we see a lot more patience. Again, with experience comes wisdom in running the offense. I mean, Roydell Williams is actually a combination between Trayshawn Ward and Trey Benson. Whereas Trayshawn Ward could make the bigger play, the big play, he couldn't make the bigger play. Where Trey Benson could make the bigger play, Trey Benson sometimes was a wrong hole lover. He was just gonna get in there by any means necessary, and that doesn't always feel good. When you're blocking, just take that how you will. But I
wrong hole guy, and he try to rush it too as well, huh?
Yeah. So, but with Roydell being patient, being able to analyze that gives good, but it also sets the trend for the other running backs. I mean, Sam Singleton is similar, very explosive. Sam might have had the best weekend. I mean, not weekend, past few days in Jacksonville. Maybe it's being closer to home, get some home cooked meals that might help you as well. But Makai and Toafili are similar backs. Both are guys that I believe are probably just as good a slot receiver as they are running backs, but they're sudden and they're dangerous in the passing game. And I think our running back field is so good that you'll see a lot of 20 and 21 personnel during the season. So and this is where I go to, and I hate to do this. I've never tried to be pompous, but there's so many people who cover the sport that have never really kind of either had to coach it or be involved in it. There's ways to scheme weaknesses. So if you believe the next group, if you believe that we're going to talk about is one of the weaker groups, well, it helps having a 6 foot and a 6'1" tailback that are both happen to be between 185 and 195 that happen to probably both run sub 4.4 and like they have good hands that you can go out there and you can create mismatches with. So I think it just goes to show what Yak. I think if this season, and I'm gonna jump around a little bit, but if this season ends with, which I believe it will, with 10 or more wins, we have to stop. We have to stop crying about who the coaches are recruiting, and at a certain point, have faith that they're recruiting a specific style of player that they feel develops and that they feel. And I think Yak is one of those guys that we can kind of just chill out on. And I said all of that without saying the big baby that we're not until I see the birth certificate, I'm not sure he's 17, 18 years old. And that's Cam Davis. I mean, Cam Davis has a face that's been here before and a body that was built during Remember the Titans. So like I just like this kid is a fast bowling ball, and it's fun to watch him.
No, you just made a good point. I was going to segue that into this next position group. We saw it a lot in 2022. We kind of got away from it in 2023, but Todd Philly is a matchup nightmare when using in the passing game, right? So I feel like adding him and you could have a upgrade at a position in the future, in my opinion. In Makai Dansley, you have ways that you can scheme for the passing game to be effective, which I don't really think it'd be an issue. But just to that point, I was thinking this exact same thing you were thinking. So let's jump to that position group that everyone's been concerned about in the receivers, and tell me what you saw out there with the receivers out there in Duval.
I see guys who are still trying to establish confidence. I see talent. I see explosiveness. I see length. I see guys that have the ability to make the play, but it's two P's in this world that can be the detriment and the best thing to ever happen to man. One, man, I don't want to demonetize you. I mean, one P, it's undefeated, untied. And it's either you're going to have good kids or they're going to give you some of the best kids. It's going to be one of your worst headaches. That P, it's a cat. You can go figure it out with your own. Or potential. Potential just means you ain't did shit yet. And that's kind of right where the wide receivers are at. You can see the potential and the breakout candidates. You can see Benson being that guy to take the top off the defense. I can see Portier and Williamson are still there, but they've been there for so long. Like, come on, we want you to do something. But I'll tell you what, these young bulls,
Yeah.
these young bulls want it. Elijah Moore wants it. Dwayne McCoy wants it. Camden Fryer wants it. These guys are going up and just making you recognize their talent and who they are. And in particular, McCoy. I really like McCoy. Benson is a good one. I think people would just want more of Benson right now than what he's really ready to give you at this juncture.
Wayne McCoy being a factor. If those kids could put it all together, they could, you know, see a lot of early playing time if the older guys can't step up to the plate. Let's move on to the offensive line and tight end. We were out in Tallahassee for a few days for the FSU practice, and we saw the difference in regards to just the size of the offensive line and how they stack up against some of the higher ranked recruiting kids for the 2025 class. So, what did you see out of the offensive line and the tight end room, and also not Landon Thomas? My apologies. Um, Kyle
Amari,
Morlock. Kyle Morlock looked
what's
damn
up,
good.
man?
He's been making a lot of plays.
Yeah.
This fall camp, a big surprise. I don't want to say a big surprise, a big turnaround from struggling.
Yeah. I think when Kyle gets consistent with his catches, I think he's going to be a lot better. That's really where he's got to earn his stripes. I mean, 6'7", 250. That's not growing on trees. That alone will make you draftable. So you have to be able to be good enough for that. Amari Williams is somebody who's really standing out for him being so young and being such an active blocker. Jackson West, I think, again, it comes down to the rooms are like, no, do we have Vernon Davis? Do we have Kellen Winslow Jr.? Do we have like any of those guys? No, not right now. But I think Landon Thomas, Amari, all these guys, there's so much talent that's in that room that can eventually, you just need them to be able to show up. Again, we can scheme around that. It's not like we've never really been known for the breakout tight end at Florida State. But the offensive line, I'll say this for the first time, we may be 8 to 10 deep. We haven't been that in quite some time. This probably is the best offensive line we've had since the 2013 season. You got with experience as well as depth. You've got Maurice Smith, who, regardless, every time they try to bring somebody to take his position, all he does is battle everybody out and prove he's the best guy for the position. Richie Leonard has stepped in from Florida. And I believe he's going to he's practiced at both guards, but I think he's going to take over that left guard spot. You've got Darius Washington, who's one of the best offensive linemen in the ACC and will be a high draft pick if he stays healthy and does what he's supposed to do. Now you're going over to that right guard, and there's a plethora of options. You can go with Ferguson. You could go with Armella. You can go with Otto, who's been taking reps there in Jacksonville. And I know everybody doesn't like oh man, I can't even think of it. Everybody doesn't like Byers. We find people that we don't like for whatever reason, but wasn't bad. I had somebody on my show telling me like how bad our offensive line was, and I'm like, is an offensive line that gave up 25 sacks on the season really that bad? I mean, that average 400 yards a game. Is that the semblance of a bad offense or offensive line? I don't know. I don't think so. I think 400 yards a game is hard to get, but I think this offensive line is improved and is better. And again, I'll say this: they all look the part, and everybody who keeps asking, "What about the young guys that Atkins recruited?" Whew, It ain't gonna show up this year, but next spring we're gonna be really excited that some of these guys at least got a chance to get the reps the right way and not just be thrown in that fire. But Atkins young pups are ready to go.
All right, let's go ahead and jump over to what we presume to be the strength of the team, and that's the defense. Let's start with the defensive line. It's a lot of excitement. We lost a lot of players on the defensive line last year with Braden Fisk and Jared Verse and those guys. So, and we add also a lot of new guys in the mix and some guys from last year that were kind of going to step up. So, looking at the defensive line, what did you see out of those guys the past few days?
I mean, I see talent. I see, believe it or not, I saw somebody say there's no way that this D line could be better than last year's D line with Braden Fisk and Jared Verse. And I said, well, you forget that Farmer was a really important part of that defensive line. Patrick Payton is here. And while as great as Braden Fisk was, like Daryl Jackson had a lot of expectations and hopes just because of how big he was in the middle. So like now you add a Marvin Jones Jr. who is verse slash Johnson esque. Obviously a lot of people, and then you add just what Papuchis has been able to do with that with the D line and Odell's development. One could deduce that they're going to be great. Now, one of the things that a lot of fans were like, well, what about we're not 8 deep? I'm like, if we're on our 8th string D tackle, man, we got really bad problems like that happen with injuries. But when you think about Farmer Jackson, KJ Sampson, Lyons, Grady, I think Flag actually, believe it or not, as a freshman, looked pretty good. And you got Durjai, who's going in there taking some snaps at more of that four eye position, and there's a lot of looks and unique things that they could give because of how much depth you have at defensive end and the size of the DN. I don't think we have a DN outside of Boots that's really under 240. Everybody's really in that 260 to 270 range, and they've got bodies. And I think it's impressive what they can do and what they can throw at you. Which again, a good D line allows you to have, it allows the back half of your defense to be even better if they're not good. Which I think our back half of our defense is exponentially better than our front seven.
Let's move on to the linebacker unit. This is another unit that I guess you could say it's a lot of question marks due to what we lost last year in Tatum Methuen and Caden DeLoach. So we brought in a couple guys like Cam Riley, of course, from Auburn, and then we also have DJ Lundy back on the linebackers the last few days in Jacksonville.
So with the linebackers are just, everybody complains about them, but when I look at what we have with Cam Riley, you have Juice Cryer, excuse me. You've got the guys who you've all kind of cried and complained about under Randy Shannon that are actually developing and doing well. On top of DJ Lundy, Omar Graham actually has showed some flashes. You've actually and Blake Nicholson, who I think might be one of the better guys this year. And you've got, again, it's similar to the wide receiver room. I think there's a ton of talent there. I just think they just need the confidence. And once the confidence comes in after you've made a couple plays, you're going to be good. And I think the ability to blitz from that linebacker position with the different types of linebackers cause different kinds of problems. Cam Riley being so tall, him being able to blitz, even if he doesn't get to the quarterback, if the quarterback throws the ball, him jumping up in the air has got to change the trajectory of how you throw the ball. Period. And Cryer and Nicholson and Graham are straight, and DJ Lundy are straight thumpers. And we run a 4-2-5, so we really don't need a ton of them. We just need 2 to operate every now and then. So that's the basics behind the linebackers.
So my favorite position group on the field, the defensive backs. We're fielding another talented group, and people call me crazy, but this group could possibly be better than last year. And last year was damn good when even though we had a couple, second round pick and a third round pick going to the NFL draft. Let's talk about the defensive backs and how they've been. We talk about the receivers and how they've been struggling. We got to talk about the defensive backs and how well they've been playing too in regards to the coverage.
I mean, here's a situation where people say you raise the floor. Well, you might have raised the floor to the ceiling and the ceiling to the stars when it comes to this. I mean, you got AZ, Fintrell Cypress, Shaheem Brown, and you can Earl Little Jr., and you can put whoever you want to put at the other one. But I think Conrad Hussey, if that's your starting 5 right there, you've got Shaheem's got an NFL grade, AZ, not Fintrell, and then Earl Little. That's 4 guys with draftable grades. Now, when you go behind that, you got Quindarius Jones, you got Edwin, is it Edwin Joseph? I think I can't remember his name, but 30 something. It caught me off guard because every time I see a DB with 30, I want to do is like take him, like go up top on his ass because I don't think they can be that good. But he's good. You don't do that. KJ Kirkland, Kirkland is doing well. You've got I saw Ashton Barker make some plays. It's a that's not even including our Ricky Knights or your Slimes, your guys like that are really freaking good and that are developing and that are getting Kai Bates, that are just guys that are just getting better. So with Florida State being running about 25 guys on average in a game, especially in close games, I think you're going to see right now this is going to continue to be a factory where they're just churning out DBs because they're going to get so much playing experience. And I do believe that this could be a secondary that's not going to wake up and go up against 3 first-round draft picks in their first game. They're not going to see. They might not see 3 first-round draft picks in the first month of total of games. So this should be an opportunity for them to get a learning curve, as well as I keep saying and harping on, is the confidence that's going to come with having made plays. And I think Patrick Surtain. One thing I'll say that Patrick Surtain really installed in him, and I now understand a little bit better the mission takeaway things. They're not just out here throwing interceptions or getting fumbles. You're seeing DBs finish through the play and making plays on the ball in the air. So like a wide receiver, when he finally does feel like he has an opening, he catches it, but then all of a sudden a DB comes in and punches the ball out that wasn't there. And it's confusing. They're fast. That's just the Florida State defenses haven't been this fast and physical, during our quote unquote downtimes after the national championship that we won in 20, the championship and the playoff run in 13 and 14. We haven't seen our defenses be this fast and physical.